It sounds funny to say that ghost hunting runs in the family, but in my case it's true. It's a generational thing. My great-grandmother was the one who started what could be described as a family tradition. I think of it more as a family curse. The ability to see ghosts seems to be in our blood. Most of the time, it's really not that big a deal. I can see ghosts, but the more I ignore them, the fainter they become. I've trained myself to blur out the grotesque visions to the point that I hardly notice them anymore. The problem arises when a ghost doesn't want to be ignored. I had to move out of my last apartment because one of the ghostly specters figured out I could see it. It would not leave me alone. Growing stronger with every shattered plate I couldn't help but react to. My family is another case entirely. They embraced the ability and turned it into a business, hunting down and destroying ghosts for a price. It really is only a matter of time before you encounter a ghost that objects. When that happens, you find yourself the hunted one. It's the leading cause of death in my bloodline, which is how I got pulled back into this ridiculous situation. My dad and brother run the family business. When I got a notice that they were both missing, I had a bad feeling about what happened. It's hard not to blame my dad for all of this. He brainwashed my brother into thinking this was a good idea. It always seems to end the exact same way. I ended up going home despite knowing better. Our family home can only be described as depressing. It's more of a ghost hunting office than a home. EMF machines and maps litter surfaces. Many of the maps had to do with an old hospital. It seemed to be centered on whatever they were investigating. The pull to find out what I could battled with the urge to leave it all alone. The balance tipped when my ex-girlfriend showed up. We broke up senior year before college. I never expected to see her again. I really didn't expect to see her on the front porch during a rainstorm, dressed as a cop. Well, she wasn't just dressed as a cop. She was a cop. I asked how she was, but she wasn't there to catch up. She asked me to come with her. Erin always had a kind of pull on me. She was someone I trusted, so I went with her, expecting her to bring me in with questions about the case. Instead, she drove me to the abandoned hospital. Before we got out of the car, she told me she had something to tell me. That she was the one who had brought my dad and brother in on a case. That people were going missing from the abandoned hospital, and she had reports of seeing something terrifying inside. She was going in, and she needed my help. My stomach sank as I listened to her. I really did not want to go into that hospital. Every instinct was telling me my dad and brother were gone, and whatever was inside that building would get me too. Erin handed me an old camcorder. I asked what the heck I was supposed to do with it, but she was already gone. I followed her as she ran in through the main entrance. Inside, her voice echoed as she called out. I followed the sound, recording. She was smart to give me the camcorder. It gave me a sense of being outside of what was happening. At the same time, I felt trapped. Something was stopping me from leaving, even if it was my own stupid sense of curiosity. After a while, I stopped hearing Erin. I could only hear my own panicked breaths and the weird creaks and moans from the old building. I might not have noticed the hand until it moved. It was wrapped around an old door up ahead. A pale hand, almost blue, with dark smudged fingers. I called out for Erin, but then I heard her voice in the distance, so it wasn't Erin. When I got to the door, nobody was there, but I kept catching glimpses of someone or something just in my periphery, part of someone's face as they watched me. The movement of a lock of hair disappearing around a corner. I could see something move on the camcorder screen, but when I looked up, it was gone. I don't know what kept me moving forward. Then I heard a scream. I ran towards it without thinking. I recognized the scream. It was Erin. I knew something terrible had happened. I found her in a stairwell. It took me a second to even recognize what had happened. There was a layer of stagnant water that almost looked like concrete. That was what Erin was floating in face down. I dropped the camera and ran to her, yanking her out of the water. I gave her mouth to mouth until she resuscitated, and emergency services were on the way. She lived, but she caught more than the attention of ghosts at the hospital. Stagnant water like the one she fell into has some pretty gnarly things in it. Things you don't want to get to your brain. Erin was stewing in the water for minutes before I found her. As for my dad and brother, there is still no evidence of them, and I don't expect there will be. As for me, I curse the fact that I went to the hospital. I wonder if Erin would have been better off not having me there to save her. Then there's my situation. Whatever I saw at the hospital followed me home. I feel a cold hand on my arm as I fall asleep. There are randomly long strands of hair in my mouth. Ignoring it doesn't seem to be working. I'm being hunted by a ghost, and I don't think there's anything I can do to stop it. This story happened back when I turned 20. I still live with my mom, but she is never around. She travels for work, and so she racks up a lot of airline miles. So when she isn't working, she's usually headed to Vegas or Atlantic City. I'm not complaining. It's pretty nice having the house to myself. Not that I do more than work, sleep, and watch YouTube on my laptop. The thing I will admit is while I like being alone, I get lonely. Living in a big house by yourself can get to you. I live in the converted attic space on the 3rd floor. I rarely go into any parts of the house other than the kitchen and my bedroom. I attend college, and my friends wanted to throw me a party at a bar near my house. As I mentioned before, I was only turning 20, so I wasn't sure if that was a good idea. I ended up offering to host the party at my house. I knew my mom wasn't going to be back, and I figured even if she was, I doubted she would care. The night of the party, everything was going great. I was even talking to a cute guy who kept asking me questions about the house. I kind of thought it was his awkward way of flirting until he handed me his card. It had information about paranormal investigations and ghost hunting. I had no idea what was going on until he explained that my house was haunted. He questioned me how I hadn't noticed. This is the part where I admit I didn't really believe in hauntings, but I kind of wanted to see the guy again. Let's call him Charlie. So I was willing to see where he was going with everything. He came back the next night with his team. There were 2 guys named Ed and Benny. There were also 2 women, a young one named Carrie and an older one named Joan. They started setting up equipment and cameras. At first, I was just kind of glad to have other people in the house with me, and I didn't believe in all the haunting stuff, so it just seemed like it was for fun. Plus, Charlie was really cute. The first sign of problems was Benny. He was kind of awkward and kept coming over to talk to me. He asked a lot of questions about my being home alone at night. I figured it was part of his job, but it still put me off. I didn't like how close he lingered, and I ended up sticking close to Carrie and Joan as a way of keeping some distance. The next problem started when the ghost investigation began. It was so boring at first. Nothing was happening. Then Benny started trying to provoke the ghost. He was yelling at it, threatening it. He stood at the top of the stairs and shouted that it was too weak to do anything to him. One second he was there, the next he was gone. When we found him, he was sprawled on the ground at the base of the stairs. His neck was in a weird position. I yelled for nobody to touch anything, thinking there was going to be an investigation. I was privately freaking out about what my mom was going to say. Then Benny stood up. He rolled his neck and there was a loud pop, but it didn't look right. We were all telling him he should sit down or we should go to the hospital. He shrugged us off, saying it wasn't a big deal. There was so much going on. All of their equipment was beeping and going crazy. I felt like I was going crazy. I told them we needed to call it quits for the night. Benny was giving me this creepy smile I just wanted to ignore. I ended up kind of kicking the whole group out. The silence was actually really nice when everyone was gone. Suddenly the house felt a lot lighter. I ended up watching a movie in the living room. The texts started over the last few days. At first, I was still kind of interested to hear from Charlie, but he was only talking about how weird Benny was acting. It was kind of a deal breaker for me. I ended up blocking him. Ghost hunting is all well and good, I guess, but it's not really my thing. I thought I saw Benny in the backyard the other night, but my neighbor came out and questioned him, and he left right away. I guess all of this really taught me that there are worse things than being alone. I'm a ghost hunter, but to be honest, the things I catch most are often faulty wiring or gas leaks. The rumbling in the attic is probably a faulty HVAC, and the banging in the basement is old pipes. Occasionally, I catch a carbon monoxide leak or black mold, and I'm just glad whoever thought to call my number actually did it. My friends all question my sanity that I keep doing what I do, despite the fact that so far I haven't found any evidence of the supernatural. What my friends don't know is that I don't need to find evidence. I was exposed to enough of it growing up. Let's just say that events from my childhood I don't like to think about convinced me years ago that things exist beyond our comprehension. Anyway, all of this happened because of my bowling league. I go every Friday. I'm not very good, but during the week I work a boring office job. Having something to look forward to besides my ghost hunting helps me get through. And honestly, ghost hunting jobs are few and far between and usually wrapped up after an hour. I had just finished bowling one of the best nights of my life when someone on my team, Karen, waved to an older woman who was approaching. Karen introduced me to her grandmother, who was having trouble with a ghost in her house. I spoke with the grandmother for a bit. She was a lovely woman named Eleanor, and it was apparent whatever was happening was frightening her. I made plans to come by with my equipment the next day. The next day was spooky, with foggy conditions and thunder in the distance. Eleanor lived in an old Victorian that just looked haunted, but I didn't get my hopes up. When Eleanor opened the door to my knock, she stared at me as if she didn't recognize me. I reintroduced myself and asked if it was an okay time. As I explained, a creepy smile stretched over her face, and she turned and shuffled off into the house. Unsure, I followed after her. I was pretty sure this was going to end with my calling my bowling friend and having to gently explain that their grandma was dealing with some sort of dementia. Just as the figure shuffled off into the dark hallway, I heard a gasp behind me. Eleanor was just coming into the house in a rain jacket and carrying groceries. She apologized for not being there when I arrived and then was confused and asked how I was in her house. Immediately, I thought she must have a twin sister or something. When I told her what happened, she looked like she might faint. She told me that whatever let me into the house was the reason I was there, that she saw herself in the house sometimes, and she didn't know if she was being haunted or going crazy. Nobody else had ever seen it. I helped her carry groceries to the kitchen, and then while she made tea, I checked the house for intruders. Part of me expected to find a confused old woman, but the thing was, whoever I saw looked exactly like Eleanor. If she really wasn't a twin, then something weird was going on. I was excited to think this might be a real haunting. I quickly set up my equipment, but things started to go wrong immediately. My electronics broke and then caught fire. While I was trying to put the fire out, I turned to see Eleanor standing in the hallway. She was wearing her rain jacket, though I had helped her take it off at the front door. I asked her where her fire extinguisher was. She didn't answer, smiling wider. Then she came at me with a giant knife. From downstairs, I heard the kettle whistle. I was yelling, avoiding the slash of this giant blade in this little old lady's hand. I managed to get away and make it to my car. I called the police, the fire department, and my bowling friend, Karen. The worst part of everything is Eleanor disappeared. We didn't find her in the house, and Karen says there's no word from her. Maybe she was just a lady with some problems, but I worry the reality is a lot scarier and weirder than that. It feels like I've lived in this house forever. Inside needs a new coat of paint, and the floors are worn, especially on the stairs. I never leave. Sometimes kids come and throw eggs at the exterior. I'm not really sure why they do that. They run away laughing and screaming even though nothing is chasing them. I could go outside if I wanted to, but I don't feel like it. There doesn't seem to be anything outside for me anymore. Sometimes people come by. The last group is a bunch of ghost hunters. That's what their truck says in big purple letters along the side. They have matching shirts and are lugging around machines that beep and repeat my words. They are so loud with their boots clomping up and down the stairs. I try to ignore it, but it's really annoying. Is it so much to ask for a little peace and quiet? Even now, I'm up in the attic trying to get them to leave me alone, but I can hear them trying to get in. They keep getting closer to the secret entrance. It makes me something I haven't been in a long time, which feels kind of nice, honestly. It's so hard in this world of manufactured emotion to really feel something. Anyway, I don't think they know what they are going to find if they do make it in. I don't think they are going to expect me at all.